Yeah. So as you guys know, those that are new, those that are old, this is where we go into the open answer and question area. So whatever stuff has been kind of scratching your brain for a little bit, even it could be insights or things you've been learning, lessons you've got, or something that's just been frustrating over the past couple of weeks, we definitely want to open up the opportunity for you to bring that up here and get not only insight from other coaches that may not be the one you meet with regularly, but also, of course, everybody else that's here. There's so much value in rubbing shoulders with good peers from around the country. So, what questions do you guys have this morning? Things you've been thinking about in these past 3 weeks that we haven't had a group call? Mr. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Bryce. So my question to the group is, I just, I've gotten set up with Google Local Services. I've gotten a phone number in there. That number is going to my cell phone, which is, I'm learning pretty quickly, probably not the way to go for me because I can't field phone calls all day. So, I'm just curious, is there something people are using, some sort of answering service that works? I mean, I would think AI can answer my phone probably at this point. So
Yeah, I've definitely got some feedback for you, but any other clients I can throw in on that? I'm sure there are many of you that have gone through that kind of transition, taking the phone off of your pocket. Scott said no one in the field should field calls.
Amen, Scott.
I like that. I agree.
thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Amen. Mhm.
Yeah.
And it might be something, Bryce, that you and I just talk about next time.
Well,
No,
I have thoughts. If any clients have thoughts, would love for you to kind of butt in here. Scott, I know you're driving, but if you are in a position to talk, would love to hear, you kind of say the difference. My knee-jerk reaction is always to say, let's get an office person. That's always going to be my knee-jerk reaction because there is so much that person can do outside of just answering the phone that's going to drive revenue, build value, help you with your sales process, help you with your lead flow and marketing. And so if you're ever worried that, hey, I just don't have enough calls to keep that person busy, I promise you and Bryce can put together a checklist and have a lot that they can have that person do. And I always prefer to have somebody real in the company who's answering the phone. They can absolutely be a virtual assistant. They can absolutely be remote. They can be hybrid. They can be in person. It can work so many different ways. We'll make sure call recording is there. We'll make sure they have the proper scripts. We'll make sure you have the accountability in place to make sure that position works really well. You might go through a few different ones before you find the right one. I know Jennifer was talking about Liz earlier. It took a couple of people before we found Liz, but now Liz is totally transforming their business and setting up 2026. So that would be my knee jerk. If I have a client who doesn't feel ready for that, we do have AI through CMM, but that's never my first reaction unless I have an office person who's overwhelmed and needs some support, but it's not enough overwhelmed to hire another person part-time. Then I would knee jerk to that. Or if a client's just really not in a financial position to bring on that office person, but I would even challenge that idea because again, they can drive revenue. Scott, I saw you pop on here. Would love for you to put in some 2 cents.
Well, I can tell you, we hired someone from day one. We started with 0, and I hired somebody for the office, and it was the best thing we did. Because especially if you're going to get on Google and use Google Local Services, it is super, super important that every phone call is answered. Someone answers our phone 24/7, a live person. And it makes a huge difference with our Google rating. You miss so many opportunities. I will tell you, we took 6 Google calls last year. That was probably more than 30% of our business from six calls. So you miss one of those, and your profitability will take a hit, or you can literally pay for that person's salary for the year by not missing calls. And course, you got to take advantage of those calls once you get them, but not missing a single call is our motto.
Love that, Scott.
Yep.
Your office gal's phenomenal. You guys found a great one in Chansey. She does a lot for you.
We did, and it took several. I will tell you, we went through about 3 or 4. But the good ones are out there. You just gotta keep working it. And so if you don't get one that's a dynamite right off, go for it again.
Yep.
It's necessary.
Totally agree. Don't let a wrong fit make you feel like the position is a wrong fit. You know, you got to kind of stay tenacious with it.
Yep.
And also don't hire somebody if you aren't prepared to like give them a concrete list of duties and how-tos, because that's not setting them up for success either. Thankfully, if you're with Redmond Growth, we can equip you with those things. We just need you to edit them to make them more applicable to you. Any other questions, feedback on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I think maybe Danny had something to say, but I'll jump in briefly as well.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that there's a little bit of a win hiding in that, Jeff, of saying, hey, Google Local Services now is making it where I realize that I'm not able to take and field all these calls all the time. So
Yeah,
I like that little win in the middle.
That's my
there.
win.
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree with Nicole. First priority is to get a person in office, because there's much more that you're managing that you ought not to be managing. A valuable concept that I often go into in these conversations as well is to recognize your hourly rate is so much higher than you might think. Most entrepreneurs and small business owners that I work with have the wrong conception that if I do it, then I don't have to pay somebody else to do it. And so therefore it's cheaper. I'm saving myself money. That's completely and utterly wrong. Your hourly rate is the highest in the entire company. It's at least $200 an hour, if not $300 or $400 an hour, depending on, your industry and where you're kind of at normally. But see your time as that way. And then that's your opportunity cost coming back to you when you bring somebody else to take care of those tasks that really don't require the mind of a $400 an hour employee, right? And that's you. So seeing the value there, you could probably have an AI answer your phone, and like Nicole said, we can do that within CMM. We can get that set up, but that's a safety net kind of fail-safe option, not really the thing you want to drive with, because there's other tasks that an AI couldn't really do. I did see that Zach also put in there that there's an alternative of using some answering services. That's possible as far as like affordability goes. They use Reception HQ. It's $1 a call, 24/7. I think House Call Pro has one as well, where any calls that you don't answer get picked up by the answering service, and they can have the ability to schedule as long as you give them access in there as well. But those are more those catch-all options. We can get more bang for your buck if we utilize it, I think, in a full role. That'd be my 2 cents there. Mr. Danny Mac, did you have a comment on this or a different question?
Yeah, thank you guys for that info. So Scott, I'm curious, you said it was one of the best decisions you made. What other tasks do you have that person doing other than answering all the phone calls? And then how did you go about finding this person?
We used Indeed. We've had really good luck with that. And Nicole handled that for us initially. Initially, we didn't have enough tasks or we didn't think we had enough tasks, but because we took the calls and the tasks grew for that person quickly. And so keeping track of paperwork, filing stuff, there's just a lot of stuff that you probably realize that you're either doing after you get off out of the field or you're just leaving it undone that that person can do. And I will also say that we used House Call Pro to answer our calls for a while. And that was a good stopgap measure. Like when we were between hires, it's not a long-term solution. It's something that you could use immediately. They're not perfect. They screw up, and it gets really expensive. You'll find out if you use them and you get very many calls that um, it gets real expensive, and you could have hired somebody and they could have done a lot of other things for you. But I don't know if you're involved in Dream 100. If you're not, that's something that this person could help you with. They could be, finding places of business for you to call on. They can help with marketing. So there's a lot of stuff you can get someone to do, and your coach can help you find stuff for them to do. I guarantee you.
That's the common experience, without a doubt. And I feel like we've heard that probably a couple of times too in the group call, that you will find things without trying to find things that fill somebody's time. There's so many things that you're doing and managing on a daily basis that make sense as more the administrative side. So seeing someone as an office admin, a lot of that administrative work is really there. Nicole and I both kind of jumped on it too, Danny, and put in the chat there that the kind of starting place template that we have for that daily office person, like their workflow, there's a checklist there, but also a general kind of overview document that has the checklist included there for reference as a starting place. But as long as you have a place to start with somebody, the other opportunities are going to come to the surface pretty darn quick whenever you get.
Absolutely.
Also appreciate the feedback from both Jordan and Scott there on House Call Pro and kind of its limited value in the answering as
And
that catch-all.
I'll go one further. I've yet to find an answering service that clients are happy with. And I just think that like it's just they're doing it for a ton of different companies. It's very generic. I honestly think House Call Pro is one of the better because at least they're already in your software and can schedule. A lot of the answering services are just a glorified voicemail. And honestly, I can say from personal experience, that pisses me off more than hitting an actual voicemail, because then somebody's just taking all my information, asking me the same questions that when they call me back, they're going to ask me all that again. And now I'm extra upset. And so I would just recommend hire a VA if you need somebody for just a couple hours per week to call through CMM, Google Local Services. I have a lot of clients that start there, or hire an office manager. That's always going to be my favorite pick for most clients.
And I will add to that too, it's very reasonable to hire an office admin part-time. When you put something up on Indeed or any sort of a job posting, it doesn't matter whether it's part-time, full-time, hybrid, or remote, or in person, you're going to get a lot of applicants. And so you can filter through it pretty quickly, and that's where you can find those, not necessarily diamonds in the rough, but you can find really all-star candidates out of that. But don't be intimidated that, I don't have enough work yet. Fine. Post it for part-time and talk to the person about that role potentially growing as the business grows. And that's okay as you cast that vision and set the expectation up front. Mr. Riley, go ahead, sir.
Mine was a different topic, so I'm totally cool with sitting to the side until we get this settled.
Yeah, you're good. There may not be any other comments. Yeah, I think there may not be other comments, so you can go ahead and transition to the next one.
Kind of spinning off that. Obviously, like I said, I'm very brand new, and I've been talking with an accountant, and she basically, I use JobTread, QuickBooks, really familiar with JobTread, not familiar with QuickBooks. Obviously trying to keep overhead super low right now. And she is wanting $1,000 a month for that. And everyone I have a great relationship with my banker, and business owners, and they're like, man, that's crazy. Like, you can do it yourself right now. And I know all you guys are successful and have started from scratch. And how did you guys handle it? The first 6 months, first year, did you do all that? Did you get someone in place? Did you bite the bullet and pay that money? Because $1,000 a month right now is a lot to commit to.
Yeah, it is. So there's a
Great
question
question.
about doing bookkeeping. That's just the cost of a bookkeeper. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Like I give
Tyler,
her all my receipts. She enters everything on QuickBooks, bills, cuts checks, all that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Tyler, I think you had your hand up if you want to jump in here first.
Yeah, I basically went through the same deal what you just said. And I am not computer savvy, but I have figured out how to use QuickBooks. And it's really not that hard. You know, when you sign up for it initially, they have like an assistant you can call, like a 24/7 number you can call, and the people who you talk to are actually really good help. And they have a lot of training videos. You're going to have to give the effort into learning how to use it. And, you know, once you learn that initially how to use it, you're like, oh, I know how to use it. And then something's going to pop up and you're like, oh, I thought I know how to use it. And you just got to keep digging in. And one thing I did, I do custom homes. And one thing that's allowed me to do is to keep my books, but also they've got a new deal where you can keep up with it by the job. So every transaction I'm able to go through and direct towards the
Slides,
job.
anything with the fires thing in the corner.
No, we ain't touched that.
But
Gotcha.
yeah, I think initially if you're trying to save some money, I think as a business owner, it's good for you to understand that before you do hand it off to somebody else.
And you're exactly right, Tyler. That's the feedback I've gotten from everyone. Is like, man, it would be very beneficial for you to do it, learn it, so you're familiar, you're not hiring someone, and then you look back in a year, it's like, man, where did this money go? How did it go to where it went? And I don't understand because I don't, I didn't put the effort into learning.
And another thing that it does for you that you don't really realize, that when you get to the end of the year, you go through a full year. Like for me, a lot of times what I get to is a custom home builder. Sometimes I have to have money, or if I want to build a spec home and the bank saying, hey, let me see your cash flow. Let me see your, what you got coming in, what you got going out, how much you made last year. The system, you go hit a drop down menu, it's going to print it out for you. If you do, if you go through the whole year, and it's a good thing. I suggest it, and then, like I said, I am not a computer guy, but you can do it.
I appreciate that.
Tyler, I love that plug because I would say 99% of our clients feel the exact same way about not being computer savvy and not being like an expert in numbers or accounting, and that's totally fine. And Riley, I agree. I really am against just hiring a bookkeeper so that you can ignore your numbers and hope that everything's getting handled. Very against that, because a lot of bookkeepers do sit on their hands. A lot of accountants do. And then they just give you a crappy P&L that when your business coach looks at it, they're like, what is happening here? And so I definitely want you to be in tune. And most bookkeepers, unless you have somebody in-house, like you're going to have to still input the stuff into QuickBooks, so you need to get at least familiar with that. But we do have a bookkeeping and tax service that we partner with and recommend. They are cheaper than the person you were talking about, Riley.
Sure.
And what I will say is there's no better investment for your company than a good accountant, a good bookkeeper, a good tax person. Like having that on your side, especially early on. I know a lot of people think, oh, when I get to this stage, I'll do that. It will cost you to wait until you get to this arbitrary number to have that person on your team. And so I'd really recommend it. You don't need to have somebody in-house. And I love the advice that Tyler gave of when you sign up for QuickBooks, talk to the rep, take the courses. That goes for any software. If you're going to invest in a software, take the time to learn it and really utilize it. It will be annoying. It is a bear at first, but it will save you so much time and headaches in the long run.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. Because Job Tread's super familiar, and QuickBooks, is can sync up with all that. I paid for QuickBooks. I have an account. I just I haven't looked at it. She's done it, and I fully agree.
Love it. Well, Riley, if
So
you want more
real quick,
information, let us know.
Yeah. So something that you do got to be aware of, Riley,
is a lot of business owners have every intention to do their own bookkeeping. And then because it's not done on a consistent basis, it becomes incredibly inaccurate. And they kind of just like lump expenses and categories. And then they get to the end of the year and they're going to go file their taxes. And either they're having to pay a CPA a lot more money to clean up their books, or they're missing out on tax savings opportunities because they simply miscategorized their books. So like, I agree with what everything is being said. Like what bookkeeping is just categorizing transactions. That's all it is.
Sure.
And so like conceptually, it's not that hard. I think it's pretty easy if you just have a little bit of patience with QuickBooks to like learn how to do that right. A lot of making sure QuickBooks is working right is making sure your accounts are like your credit cards, your bank accounts are integrated with QuickBooks the right way so that every single thing is feeding into there. But then you have to, maintain it, because if you get paid with checks or you deposit cash or whatever, right, that's not going to have a lot of information there. You've got to know that is. And so, I personally recommend every business owner to hire a bookkeeper or to hire someone who can do it full time, because a business owner already has a million different things swirling in their orbit. And the task of like regularly sitting down at a set time, I've seen few people do it. There are some people that can do it, but the task of like sitting down at a regular set time to like properly do your bookkeeping typically is something that doesn't last very long. And the bookkeeping becomes kind of like a chore that we ignore until we're like, oh my gosh, I'm a month behind. And then your time is limited, but there's so much work to do. So you just kind of, generalize expenses. And then you could kind of like your financial statements become totally unusable because they're inaccurate. You can't read them. So what I recommend doing is, yes, learn how QuickBooks works, but learn how to read a financial statement and make sure that those financial statements are accurate, right? The way that you can make sure it's accurate is if you're looking at a P&L and you notice that one expense category seems to be like off, right? Like that's when the knowledge of QuickBooks would help, because then you can then click into that expense category and see the individual transactions in that category, right? So that you can see what's kind of happening. I think my feedback to you would be realistic about who you are, be realistic about the ongoing time commitment, especially as you grow your organization. And personally, I'm like, hey, business owners, pay for the benefit of having accurate on-time financials. That's why Nicole mentioned our guy, scorp.biz. He does a great job. He works with tons of contractors. Everyone that works with him loves him. I think for bookkeeping, he charges, I don't know what it is. It's like $700 a month, I think, 600.
That's for
700.
bookkeeping and taxes.
And it'll include your tax filing. It'll include your annual tax filing.
Yeah, no extra fee at the end of the year. A lot of people will hit you with that. They'll say, hey, monthly, it's this. And at the end of the year to do your taxes, I'll hit you with the extra fee. But this is just includes everything.
So anyway, this conversation is starting other conversations. So I want to turn to Jordan. I was actually thinking about Jordan and Stacy in some of the feedback that I just gave.
Well, Jordan's lucky that Stacy, his wife and business partner, does a great job with the book. So he's got a plug.
Yeah, if you have that, like that's great. Like that works too, Jordan.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I got incredibly lucky that my wife was willing to learn something that she had never seen or looked at before, and she was able to like figure it out. We have a tax, like our tax accountant also has like some bookkeepers that work under them. So like when she gets stuck on something with QuickBooks, she can reach out to them and they help. I mean, obviously they charge per hour on that phone call, but after like 3 years, she's gotten to the point where there's very little things she needs to reach out for. Like the first year, there was a lot of stuff she regularly reached out on. And then after that, she learned a little bit more. And now she doesn't regularly have to reach out. Most of the stuff she can handle on her own. But it is a huge portion, even with her knowledge, it's a huge time commitment in her monthly schedule to get all that stuff entered in. My question, kind of like piggybacking off of this, is Robert was talking about everything syncing with transactions and credit cards and all that stuff. So we've got an account that syncs with credit card, all of our credit cards. And then we've got folders of every month of all the receipts. How critical is us? I mean, I know we have to store those receipts, but how critical is those receipts getting uploaded into QuickBooks in terms of like liability with IRS or anything like that? Because it's like all the transactions are already there. You know,
Yeah, I think that
loading receipts.
the really the only reason why I would store a receipt is for the customer's benefit. Like I would store a receipt in case a customer is later asking for a receipt or some sort of proof of purchase or whatever. I'm not, this would be a great question for a CPA, and I'm not a CPA. So I want to be careful with what I say. I can tell you that like the risk of an IRS audit happening and then them saying, I need all your receipts is like extremely low because of what you just said. It's like the transaction history is stored. Now, part of that is like you can't, see what particular, like a lot of the details of the transaction that a receipt would tell you. But I wouldn't worry. I would ask your CPA would be my first advice. But then I would say I wouldn't be too concerned with that. The risk of
Because we've
an
got
IRS audit, as long as you're filing your taxes on time and you're like, like as long as you're following, like you're filing taxes on time or you're filing an extension on time, and then with the extension filing your taxes on time. And so long as you're like following, tax laws in general, right? So if you're like an S corp, you're paying yourself a reasonable wage of some kind and you're paying payroll taxes. And then when you file taxes, you're paying on time, or if you're needing a payment plan, you're working that out proactively. As long as you're doing those things, the risk of an audit is extremely, extremely low. Like the IRS has bigger fish to fry, you can actually look up the risk of an audit based upon your income, and that's always an interesting thing to look up. I would assume that for most people it's very low, but I would think I would default to go to your CPA and asking them the particulars, because they may be able to get in the weeds of things that I'm not thinking of.
Thanks.
Drew?
Hey, so yeah, I'll jump in. So I'll kind of, and this is back to Riley, but I'll kind of give you my experience. So we started, we started our business early 2025. And I mean, I understand all the accounting, and, we were just doing, basically I spent the whole year convincing myself that I was going to turn our just like project by project, rough profit and loss accounting into something that makes sense for our tax returns. And it's like, it's end of 2025 and I'm like, okay, well, I still haven't actually sat down and done that. And so now, I'm hiring a bookkeeper to go back through all of our stuff and like rectify all of our bookkeeping for the year to make it make sense for a return. But I think the biggest thing for me is not like, even if you understand the accounting piece from a business perspective, it's also like making sure you have the framework and the system set up in QuickBooks to match what you're doing with your business, which was the most scary thing for me to do. And so I guess the way I think we're going to handle it is hire the bookkeeper to get the framework set up in QuickBooks, and then, work with them to show us how to do it, and then make a decision on, okay, how easy is this going to be for me? Like, how much time do I think I'm going to spend on it? Should we continue to pay for the month by month bookkeeping after we have everything already set up, or can I do it myself? I think is where we're leaning. So just a thought.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for the input there, Drew. Stacy, you got something?
Yeah, so for the QuickBooks, like I follow the profit first, and I have all 7 accounts linked to my QuickBooks, and then I also have each of the technicians' credit cards linked. But I did just sign up for, they have like a special to help like do like it's called not House Call Pro, QuickBooks Online Assistant. And then you can do, so basically they did like a promotion, but I can have them just kind of check and make sure to see if they see anything, which is a lot cheaper than calling our accountant. So I'm going to do that just because I'm anal and I like to make sure, that everything's together. But I found that pretty helpful for things that I found, and just staying on top of, even if it's like at the end of the week. I mean, I do it every day because that's the biggest part of my job, but, making sure weekly, and then you can catch the errors quicker. And then rectify them and see, because it just takes one, like for me, because we do the profit first, it takes one error to mess up like a whole bunch of stuff. And so it's just finding those ways. And then once you get acclimated, you can use YouTube or Google, because it gives you step by step, where it makes it really user friendly to follow.
Nice. Yeah, I think 2 helpful thoughts to just throw my hat in the mix as well. Is a general idea is just know enough financially to be dangerous, right? Be able to have that knowledge base, but don't try to become a bookkeeper or CPA yourself. That's not your most valuable and best use of time. Kind of with what Robert was saying. Also agreeing that it's worth it to get a bookkeeper. $1,000 a month, just for frame of reference, is a pretty expensive bookkeeper. I would expect at least monthly real-time meetings that you have with them to review your books, as well as having on-time accurate books. It's at that kind of a price point for sure as a minimum. But the other thing that Nicole mentioned as well, just to reiterate too, and what Stacy's kind of saying there as well, any software you use, whether that be JobTread, House Call Pro, CMM, anything like that, you're going to be set up with some sort of an onboarding specialist, or at least a support route. Utilize that. Really make use of any software system that you use, because I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, they all do the same stuff. It's just you didn't know that it did it. And so you can consolidate some of these softwares and get to what you need from it and make your costs less just by doing that. And then the last thing, I said 2 things, but there's a third thing. The Rocks calendar is a concept that we talk about a lot in Redmond Growth, but the general concept, if you haven't covered that yet with your coach, is just time blocking, creating space in a week's time frame to prioritize the core aspects of your business as a business owner. So in this case, like with what Stacy was saying, to acclimate yourself, giving yourself at least a weekly rhythm where you're doing that activity, so you don't find yourself caught, like Drew was saying earlier, at the end of the year of like these great intentions of I was going to do this, but I never actually made space to do it. Utilizing some discipline to give yourself a weekly rhythm to invest that time, because it's not going to just happen in your lap. You're not going to find yourself one week where you're like, oh, I don't have nothing to do, and I'm not freaking out about that. I'm not going to go crazy and try to find sales, or rework all these old bids and try to talk to people. Like, you're going to fill it other ways. So you have to plan for the core priorities on a weekly basis, and that's that Rocks calendar. It's my 2 cents there.
That's really good, Bryce, and I'm so glad you said that. Not every bookkeeper will be available or will be willing to meet with you weekly, but having a rhythm of some kind is so important. Like, trying to have that. I know that, like, for Power Builders and Redmond Growth, like, we meet with our bookkeeper, I think it's every other week we meet with them. And in that meeting, a lot of it is just answering transaction questions so that she can do accurate bookkeeping. So it's like, hey, what was this, random expense, right? But it also keeps us very much in the loop of where are we sitting actively, in our profitability. A lot of times, like reviewing a P&L, it's kind of like they call it a lag, LAG measure, right? So when you're talking about KPIs, that's key performance indicators. Some of you are familiar with that term. Maybe that's a new term for some of you guys. But it's basically the data points that will indicate, success in your business, right? So KPIs as it relates to marketing and sales could be like, hey, how much are we spending on ads? What's our lead volume? What's our cost per lead? How many leads did we get? How many appointments are we setting, right? So, and then with KPIs, you have lead measures and lag measures. Lead measures are more of data points that you can rely on that can indicate like future success, like they can predict what is going to happen. And lag measure is more of a data point that indicates past, activity, like it's like already happened. So a lot of times people treat a profit and loss statement like a lag measure, right? Like if you're looking at your profit and loss statement and you haven't looked at it for the previous month and you're looking at it in the middle of the next month, that's kind of normal for it to be finalized. It takes some time, right? It's not always finalized on the exact day of the, last month or whatever. But if you're not actively looking at it throughout the month and then you're waiting till the next month to look at it, there's nothing you can do to change your profitability for the previous month. It's like, oh, well, that's what we did. Now you can still use that usefully to say like, okay, how did we get here? What mistakes do we not realize that we're making? Like that's still a really good practice in general. I'm not wanting to poo-poo that. But I'm wanting to emphasize the value of having a regular financial meeting of some sort, especially with someone who's in the weeds of your expenses and who cares, right? And who actually is. That's why I think a lot of times if you can have someone who's knowledgeable enough, like the Jordan and Stacy setup within your organization to manage that, and then maybe have, like even if you were to pay a CPA just quarterly to file your quarterly taxes, right? They're going to need financials, accurate financials quarterly. That's a great kind of built-in accountability system to make sure that you have accurate financials throughout the year and you're not waiting till the end of the year. It's also cheaper. You get penalized if you're not paying quarterly taxes. It's not like huge, but that's something that I learned within the past few years, because I always would just pay my taxes at the end of the year. And I learned that it was more expensive to do that. It's changed in 2025. And now I'm looking at my 2025 tax estimate. I'm like, I'm not having to make some huge lump sum payment in April, So anyway, if you can find a regular time, like Bryce is saying, it's part of creating a cadence. You're like rocks for managing your business. One of those should be a regular review of financials, where you're making sure that random transactions are categorized accurately, right? And that you're reviewing where your profitability is sitting at that point in the month, right? It won't always be 100% accurate, because a lot of times there's activity that hasn't happened yet that will happen, right? There's money that needs to come in that hasn't come in yet, but it's still a very useful exercise to allow you to make proactive changes before the month is done. And I really believe like the best driver, if you're looking, like I remember I was working with one client, and we do this with everybody. We do this with you guys. We track your monthly, revenue and net profits on our like KPI tracker sheet that we have. I remember there was this one client where I actually put like this giant like steering wheel or whatever they call it that like drove old sailboats. Do we have any sailors, and what are those called? Those giant steering wheels? You know what I'm talking about, that like pirates used to drive, right? It's like I put a picture of one of those on because like it was those numbers that should be guiding the business decisions and, the focus of the business. And because it's those numbers that then lead into so many other sub questions that allow you to make better informed decisions and better analyze and better pinpoint what is actually happening that is serving us, that's making us profitable, what is happening that's detracting from that. And then it kind of all starts from there. That's why we focus on numbers so much. Your coaches do. It's like pretty early in the process. We're like, can we get your P&L? It's like, what's a P&L? It's like, okay, let's do this, let's go after it. But that's so important. The reason why is because how else, like something that the team I think has noticed over the years is like, I am like no excuse for inaccurate financials. Like get that stuff accurate because otherwise you're driving blind, it's like you're a sailor on a foggy, dark night trying to navigate the ship, not knowing there's a giant iceberg. Titanic, it happens. It happened to the Titanic. It happens. Anyway, I'm done with that tangent. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? We've got like 5 minutes left. Really great discussion. I love talking about this. I really do. Because like as contractors, we're not like, no one ever sits us down and is like, let me teach you how to read a financial statement, right? Like a profit and loss statement. Let's talk about cost of goods sold expenses, right? What that means and what that is. But it's so important to learn some of these basics. And Bryce, we have a really cool document, the consulting with a P&L document. I don't know if we use it as much, but it's basically a very simple one-page Google Doc that breaks down the particular parts of a profit and loss statement. And it shows you where your percentage is in each section of a profit and loss statement for a construction business or trade business, where your percentages should be. And if the percentages aren't there, there's like a few helpful steps on how to change those, right? So like the first line of any profit and loss statement is your sales, right? Your income. There's only a handful of ways to change, to increase the sales. If you want to increase that part of a P&L, is you can increase the number of transactions that are happening, right? That's getting more customers. You can increase your price, right? Or you can increase the volume at which your current customers buy, or increase the deal value. Beyond that, there isn't really a whole lot you could, like, those are very basics. There's a whole lot that goes after that, but those are the very basics. And we have some great documents to make it easy to understand, hey, how to read this stuff, how to make sense of it, and where your numbers should be. So that's the stuff. Learning how to do this kind of stuff, like learning how to read a financial statement, I would say is more important than learning like the technical task of bookkeeping. You have to have that done for your business, but for an owner, reading and making smart, informed decisions from the data of a profit and loss statement is the more valuable skill set than like learning how to categorize like your Home Depot receipts. Still a necessary thing and it has to be done. Not saying to ignore that. In fact, it's so important that you can't do the other thing I'm suggesting. You can't read a P&L. If it's inaccurate, you don't even read it if it's inaccurate, because it's not going to tell you any helpful information. It's like trying to like bake cookies with an inaccurate recipe. Okay, it's asking for 2 pounds of sugar. Like that's going to mess things up. That's going to be a little bit too much, right? Like you might as well not even make the cookies, So anyway, am I talking too much, Bryce?
No.
We've never had my grandma's cookies then.
Dude, listen, after I said that, I should have said 2 pounds of salt. Yeah, I should have said 2 pounds of salt, because I said that, I was like, it doesn't sound so bad actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we appreciate you guys being here so much. Happy New Year. This is going to be a great year, guys. I feel like it's going to be a great year for us. And I really believe that every year, our team's getting better. We're bringing on a new coach. We're bringing on a new coach this month. Alex Tyson is his name. So you guys will be meeting him soon. Sharp young man. And I just believe that, together, especially like with calls like this, like our group call, that we're all getting better and getting results. So, yeah, if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and break down. Daniel Merrill, good to see you, man. Love your Jesus that you got there. That's cool. That's a beautiful, beautiful portrait of the man. All right, should we break down?
Lead us through it, Robert.
Okay, so if you're new, do we have any first-time group callers?
I think we do. Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple. So what we do is this. Here's how we break down the group call. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. After I say one, I'm not going to say go, right? So it's just 3, 2, 1. After I say one, we all scream growth as loud as we can, right? So everybody unmutes their mics, and everybody loves doing this, by the way. The people that have been doing this for a long time, especially David.
All right, Robert.
Hobbs,
We got to go to our next meeting.
All right, 3, 2, 1, grow!
Growth!
There we go.
Bye, guys.
I knew David Hobbs loves it. All right, good to see you, Michael.